opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, Ph.D. It is Sunday, the 12th of April, 2026. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, President and CEO of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommy. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Polly.
First article is all you. I'm just going to read the headline and Mary's going to explain. So New York Times does it again, proves that pro-vaccine propaganda trumps journalism. So over to you, Mary, because you wrote this.
I did. So last Sunday, Polly, I was reading the New York Times, which I do. I think it's important to understand what the mainstream narrative, and I was so angry that I just had to call them out. So it's a piece in their magazine. Apparently it went online earlier in March, but it talks about in the first paragraph, you know, how terrible. It's about the disaster that Bobby Kennedy has created at CDC. But in the first paragraph, they not only go after Bobby, but they go after Ph.D, the anti-vaxxers. And it's just an outrageous piece of propaganda, putting it gently. And so I just called out their lies. And it was somewhat satisfying, Polly. I sort of went through about 10 of them, I think. Here's what's really going on. People are desperately sick. Kids are in terrible shape. People are stopping to go to see doctors. Vaccination rates are dropping. We're going to have a national religious exemption really soon. And you can either keep talking about this propaganda or you can actually stop and tell the truth. And I say it's never too late. And you know, what satisfies me, Polly, is one of the things they say in the article is that they watched CHD TV during the measles outbreak in West Texas. I'm sure that people at the New York Times will at least read the article. And I don't really care what they think about it, but I want them to understand that I read them just like they read us. And I want to call them out. They're lying, and it's harmful to people.
And I think it's the right thing to do, call them out. For so many years, there was this opinion of, oh, just let it go and just move on, do your work. I think calling them out is exactly the right thing. But Mary, also, there's been a lot of hit pieces on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and
oh my gosh, it's all the time. It's constant. And they typically do mention Children's Health Defense, and we're fairly prominent in this article. So back at you, New York Times.
Well done, Mary. Let's stay on the subject. So Defender wrote this. I love this article. Pro-vaccine panelists, we are losing the PR and communications battle. The medical industry is losing control of the vaccine narrative, according to participants in a webinar moderated by Chelsea Clinton and organized by United Consortium, which is a group of pharmaceutical companies and pro-vaccine organizations. Panelists singled out Children's Health Defense for its role in causing more parents to question the medical establishment's safe and effective vaccine narrative. I'd say that was jolly good work on our behalf.
I think it's jolly good work. I think you can not only judge people by their friends, but also by their adversaries. So I think we're right in the right spot there. You know, she even talks about the old myths regarding autism that, you know, vaccines cause them. It's awful. It's really awful.
Yeah.
She, you know, you're absolutely right that you're losing not only the PR battle, you're losing the truth battle. So go for it, Chelsea.
And it's costing them millions and millions of dollars to be doing that. Whereas us, it's just the people that carry it because it's the truth. Yep. Truth will always win.
Truth wins in the end.
Suzanne Burdick in The Defender. More parents seek out vaccine-friendly pediatricians who will simply answer their questions. This is Dr. Osvaldo Villarreal, a Texas primary care doctor who has been treating children for over 14 years, said his practice grew after the COVID-19 pandemic. It woke up a lot of parents and they will not just simply comply, he says. He warned that pediatricians who refuse to treat children whose parents won't vaccinate are going to make themselves extinct. It's a very uplifting article.
It is a very uplifting article that, you know, if you want to grow your practice, say that you will be very happy to have families that don't vaccinate. This article mentions, Polly, Dr. Green Mom. They were a sponsor at some of our past conferences. That is such an important website, Dr. Green Mom, because it lists vaccine-friendly pediatricians around the country, doctors who will be happy to have you and work with you in terms of whatever schedule you want, including no vaccines. So
excellent.
It really is a great trend, Polly.
And it's great to have new pediatricians coming forward. If you're a pediatrician out there, come to Children's Health Defence. We will take care of you.
Yeah.
And it must be liberating to be at last be able to just talk about the truth.
Yeah, you're so right, Polly. We were so censored for so long, and doctors for sure. We'll talk more about that in today's discussion. But yes, it's great that it's starting to happen, Polly. The medical profession is actually starting to accept these people, and as Dr. Villarreal says, they're going to go extinct if they don't get on the bandwagon to not vaccinate kids.
Okay, Jill, as in here in the Defender, it was not fine. Children's Health Defence, Brian Hooker describes what happened to his son after a nurse said it was fine to give the toddler multiple vaccines. So Brian Hooker, Ph.D, is a chief scientific officer at Children's Health Defence. I know all our viewers know exactly who he is.
Yeah.
He said he was happy and proud to follow the childhood vaccine schedule. When his son, now an adult, was 15 months old, he followed the paediatrician's advice to administer multiple vaccines during a well baby visit, even though the toddler had an ear infection. That advice led to a severe reaction, regression, and finally an autism diagnosis. I want to say I'm really pleased the Defender is highlighting how many staff at Children's Health Defence have exactly the same story.
Yeah, so similar. And it's a great interview with Tony Ebel, who's a pediatric chiropractor who runs a podcast called PX Docs. I actually am going to have a podcast with him soon. And he's just very uplifting. Brian's son was born by C-section. And so even before he had this really extreme reaction to the vaccines, there were already signs that he wasn't well. And the nurse said, oh, it's fine to vaccinate him when he's sick. Stephen was sick at the time they vaccinated him. And so it's just so tragic, Polly. And the good news is that we know better and we're communicating to the world, never vaccinate a sick baby, ever. Your baby is already coping with some kind of immune problem, some kind of immune challenge. You never want to vaccinate a baby when they're sick. And I don't care what the American Academy of Pediatrics has to say. But it's a great interview with Brian, going back over how he connected to the CDC, how he connected with Bill Thompson, how that became the Vaxxed film. The Freedom of Information Act that Brian has done over the years. He's been just a superstar in that space. It's a great interview.
Yeah, and Brian Hooker's been in every single Vax film. If it wasn't for Brian Hooker, there would be no Vax.
There would be no Vax films.
But he's been in every single one. And he's going to be in our new one as well, which we'll talk more about later in the year.
All right.
Family of Helen Keller opposes bill to deny funding for some non-verbal communication methods, including those used by spellers. Proposed changes to a New York state bill that would deny state funding for certain types of communication methods, including, again, those used by spellers, have prompted an outcry from disability advocates, including descendants of Helen Keller, a renowned 20th century activist for the disabled who was deaf and blind.
Well, I think it's fantastic that Margot Keller, Helen Keller's niece, stood up on this. And there's a fantastic Instagram that's in this article that is just so compelling. So what's happening in New York State is in the assembly, there's an autism dad, Mr. Santa Barbara, who got this bill for having communication partners of whatever the person who is a non-speaker or an unreliable speaker wants. That passed the New York State Assembly. And then in the New York State Senate, you have to have a companion bill. The chair of that committee, Fahey, basically completely inverted the bill so that people will not be able to get the communication partners they need. And so Margot Keller is saying here, without Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller's communication partner back in the day, we would never have heard Helen Keller's voice, and how impoverished we would all be, let alone Helen Keller, if we hadn't heard her voice. And so we believe this is out of step with the Americans for Disabilities Act. It's against federal law. And it's really important that we keep fighting this in New York and across the country. As we know, Polly, the letterboarding, the spelling, I have one right here, has made a huge difference for people who cannot speak. And it doesn't mean that they're unintelligent or that their brain is in any way unable to process thought. It just means that the brain connection between the brain and the mouth no longer works.
I just have to say, I remember some time ago interviewing a family who were doing this communication like that. And when I first walked into the house, this young man was extremely severe, to the point where you don't think he's able to even hear you, see you, know that you're there. And then when he started doing the spelling, he was talking about stocks and shares.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, it blew me away.
Yeah. No, I mean, this spell to communicate, rapid prompting method has really transformed the lives of non-speakers and their families, Polly. And even for the unreliable speakers, it's made a huge difference. My son is verbal, but he himself characterizes himself as an unreliable speaker. And so letterboarding is really helping these people to communicate more effectively and more deeply and more comprehensively. It's really, it's the biggest innovation, Polly, we've seen in 30 years in autism, which is pathetic, right? They've spent billions of dollars on genetic research, but what's really happening? An alphabet on a board. That's what's really making the difference, but it's making a huge difference for people.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Okay, here's The Independent, which is a UK media outlet. The headline here, the 7 key signs of autism in adults aged 40 and over. Over 90% of people over 40 with autism are undiagnosed. This is England, and they say it's an alarming overall underdiagnosis rate of 89.29%. First of all, this is them trying to normalize autism.
Yeah.
Secondly, so they're saying 40 and above. So when I was growing up, there was no autism that we could see. It was not visible in the store. It was not visible at school. And when Billy got diagnosed sort of 27 years ago, I had to go to a library, Mary, and look up.
Me too.
autism.
I didn't know what autism meant when my son was about to be diagnosed. I really didn't know what the word meant. I just thought, I didn't know it as a diagnosis. I heard it was sort of like, self-absorbed. That's all I knew autism meant. This is a ridiculous article, Polly. Like, everybody would be autistic. They have these 7 characteristics, like adherence to structure, having an obsession about something, having sensory issues, like not liking change, having trouble with rules, romantic problems, integration in the workplace. It's like, who doesn't have those? Like, everybody in the world could be characterized as autistic. And what was the funniest thing to me, Polly, is I'm reading this article on the Independent website, and a Lilly ad comes up. So this is pharma just making autism like, oh, it's just another way of being human. It's all good. No, it's not. It's environmentally caused, and it's very, very difficult.
But those things you just read out are not things that the average person that's vaccine injured like Billy can even do. He doesn't have relationships to even have problems with. He doesn't go to work and have problems at work because he can't go to work.
Go to work,
So,
yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about, but it's not.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous article.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, I'm glad we called it out. Defender here, Bridge, Michigan reported state lowers vaccine age recommendation in Michigan amid measles outbreak. So some children as young as 6 months should be vaccinated with the MMR. Infants ages 6 months to 11 months of age who receive this accelerated first dose will also get the 2 additional doses. So if you get one at 6 months, you're going to get it again at 12 months, and you're going to get it again at whenever the next one is after that. And that, Mary, is autism on a stick. I mean, you're
totally, an MMR at 6 months, Polly, it's an incredibly toxic vaccine. In general, they say not before 12 months. And now in this crisis, they're saying at 6 months. I mean, it's really dangerous.
Plus, they get other shots at 6 months. So God knows what that's going to do to that baby. And we had Brian Hook on this week, and he was saying how dangerous. There's no science behind that. Yeah. And please, people, be very, very careful. HHS expands criteria for embattled CDC vaccine panel. What does this even mean? It's fueling speculation that the agency is planning to appoint new members. So last March, federal judge shut down the committee after ruling that its members were unqualified. HHS has not yet appealed the court's decision. And by the way, Mary, they were perfectly qualified, were they not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is interesting, Polly. So this is a new partial version of the ACIP charter that would become effective April 1st, 2028. But it's definitely a good expanded definition, just saying there has to be a balance of specialty areas, not just vaccinologists who are obviously indoctrinated. And it has to have people who are looking at vaccine injuries. So I think it's interesting. I don't think we fully understand where this is all going. And the lawsuit, HHS has said they too will appeal, as we, Children's Health Defense, already have. But it's a murky picture. What's going on with vaccine policy and ACIP and this court and a new ACIP committee? It's all pretty murky at the moment.
Brenda Belletti here. Appeals court upholds West Virginia vaccine mandate and rejects religious exemption. This is a West Virginia appeals court, found that the state's requirement that students be vaccinated against a range of infectious diseases does not violate the First Amendment protection of religious freedom. Anthony and Crystal Perry brought the case on behalf of their daughter, who was enrolled in an online public school, but was later disenrolled after school officials determined she was not fully vaccinated. Can't make this up.
You can't make it up, but this is actually really exciting. This article really is exciting to me. So West Virginia is at the heart of the religious exemption issue. And the issue is happening both through the federal courts and through the state courts. So this was a decision from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the middle step from the federal line. This is a girl whose parents wanted to homeschool her, but because she's unvaccinated, but they can't homeschool her because one parent's disabled and one parent has to go to work. So they enroll her in a public online school. And so these two judges say, yeah, it doesn't matter. She can't expose anybody because she's unvaccinated. You don't have a right under the First Amendment to a religious exemption. The good news here, Polly, is that the dissent, so that's two judges signed on to that. They did not follow existing federal Supreme Court law. The dissent by Justice Niemeyer is really good. And he's like, it's obvious in this case that the court has to apply strict scrutiny. They have to make sure that the government is using the least restrictive means possible to achieve its objective of disease control. 45 states have figured this out. Is it really the case that West Virginia can't? And here's this conflict between public education and religious faith. The court has to apply strict scrutiny where the government's going to lose. So this is absolutely teeing up the issue that has to get resolved, which is that there is a First Amendment right to a religious exemption for children in public school. So this case in the federal line they're going to ask for the Supreme Court to review this. And at the same time, Polly, by May, I think, certainly by June, the Supreme Court of West Virginia is also looking at this issue of religious exemption. And we talked about this last week. And when we talked about it last week, I looked up the 5 justices on the Supreme Court of West Virginia. I am very optimistic that the Supreme Court of West Virginia is going to say, yes, there is a right to a religious exemption. And so it's coming, Polly. We're going to have a religious exemption right across the country before we know it. We really are.
We should. But it was online.
Polly, this is not rational. This is absolutely not rational. So the majority here is resting on a 1905 Supreme Court decision, Jacob versus Massachusetts. And the majority here, these two people did not look at Mahmoud v. Taylor and Miller versus McDonald, which they had an obligation to look at because that's the most recent Supreme Court precedent that does relate to a conflict between religion and the school strictures. So I'm excited that this is coming out. It's coming to a head, and it's going to happen, Polly.
And you've been shouting out about this, Mary, ever since I've known you, basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got to have the right to say no. Yeah. You shouldn't have to have a religious exemption. Let's be clear. Yeah. As a matter of informed consent, prior, free, and informed consent or informed refusal, you should not have to assert a religious reason. But in the real world that we live in, we know that medical exemptions do not work. The doctors will not grant them. Their license go under scrutiny. So you must have a religious exemption. And in truth, First Amendment religious jurisprudence is so broad that you could not believe in God, but still have a legitimate claim to a religious exemption. This is what I hold highest. The body is divine. I don't believe in God, but I have a right to a religious exemption. It's coming. It's slower than you and I would have wanted, like 30 years too slow, but it's coming.
Censorship delayed publication of peer-reviewed study linking COVID vaccines to blood cancer, authors allege. The authors of this peer-reviewed study mapping possible links between mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and blood-related cancers said they face an uphill battle to publish their findings. John Campbell, Ph.D., said The struggle to publish the research reveals the great difficulty in getting things published if they don't fit the mainstream narrative. Well, we know all about that, don't we, Mary?
This Dr. Polycretis, who finally got this published, that particularly his case study is about a woman in her 30s, perfectly healthy. She gets a Comirnaty vaccine, and the next day she develops very shortly thereafter, she develops two different blood cancers, pretty clearly related to the vaccine. There's no other logical explanation. This doctor submitted this publication to 16 medical journals before he got one to accept it. That's outrageous. The censorship in science is absolutely outrageous. It's unacceptable. I'm glad that John Campbell is calling it out.
Yeah, and it's not just the mRNA, the AstraZeneca vaccine, so much blood cancer coming from that as well. Michael Nevadakis, textbook conflict of interest. Did Blackstone pressure the FDA to reverse course on Moderna mRNA flu vaccine? In 2024, Blackstone, the world's largest alternative assets manager, launched a $750 million investment in Moderna to support the development of its mRNA flu vaccine. In February, the FDA rejected a review of the vaccine's phase 3 clinical trial. By early March, the head of the agency's vaccine division was gone from the FDA and the review was back on. What does that all mean, Mary?
What it means is that Blackstone pressured, likely, President Trump. Pfizer also has strong connections here. Apparently, Blackstone has connections to the Republican Party. As Toby Rogers opines here and is quoted, it's an extreme example of regulatory capture. Sayer G says this is textbook conflict of interest. This is terrible, Polly. This is showing us that the FDA is still really captured by pharma. Blackstone has $1 trillion under management, and they want the Moderna flu vaccine to go through. Kudos to Vinny Prasad that he stood up here and said, no, this doesn't pass muster. I'm not going to even grant you the right to have a phase 3 clinical trial. This is showing us that we're not done yet, Polly. We're not done by a long shot.
Fertility is in the toilet. Scientists call chemical exposure a huge societal problem. Common chemicals in plastics and consumer products are driving not all the fertility decline, I'm sure, other health problems. Environmental epidemiologist Shauna H. Swan said, and she was on the Joe Rogan Experience, she argued that regulators have failed to act, leaving individuals to protect themselves. The regulatory agencies are not doing the job, she said. So she's sounding the alarm about these common chemicals in plastic, which I'm sure are not helping. But we know that vaccines have also played a part, especially the HPV.
Oh, for sure. But apparently she's in this series on Netflix that I've been hearing people talk about, Polly, called The Plastic Detox. And she's with couples. And when they start to detox plastic, they're actually able to have babies, whereas at the beginning, they're infertile. So we're talking about here forever chemicals, PFAS, plasticizers, BPA, microplastics. And we've been telling our people about this for a long time. Unfortunately, no, we can't rely on regulators. They're better in Europe than they are in the US. They're more restrictive when it comes to these things that are harming our health. Rogan says here, what's your health worth? Well, it's worth a lot. It's worth everything, right? So we do need to minimize plastic in our lives. We really do. We have to prefer other things and minimize the plastics in our clothing, in our personal care products, like they are everywhere.
Yeah, and do not drink, if you can help it, out of the plastic water bottles either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alliance for Natural Health International. Even big food can't ignore the science. Ultra-processed foods are killing us. A growing body of research shows that people who eat more ultra-processed foods face higher risks of illness and early death. With findings now consistent across large studies, big food faces increasing pressure to respond.
This is a great article, and there's a graph that shows that kids eat about 60% of their diet is ultra processed, and adults it's like 50%. Bali, and this article explains that these ultra processed foods are engineered so that you'll keep eating them after you're full. It's just horrible. And so the article's point is we have to reclaim real food. We have to go back to eating real food, not ultra processed food. And, of course, that's so real. That's so true.
And I mean, to those out there saying, well, I can't afford it, I get that. And food is extremely expensive,
It
good
is.
food right now, but it's worth to eat less and eat best.
Yeah.
Came out with that, it's rather good. Okay, Brenda Belletti in The Defender. Dangerous and reckless, Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses expose sensitive data. An investigation reveals that these Meta's AI-powered smart glasses rely on largely unseen global workforce, reviewing deeply personal user data, often without users' knowledge. As the company moves to add facial recognition features, privacy advocates and lawmakers warn that the technology will expose sensitive information, blur consent, and create significant risks for public safety and civil liberties. I don't think I've ever seen any Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses, have you?
I haven't seen them. They're piloting them in Kenya, but Polly, there have already been lawsuits against Meta for this, and they've already paid billions of dollars for their infringements on privacy. I don't fully understand this, but I think what they're saying, Polly, is you wear these glasses and I run into you on the street and I say, "Oh, hi, Polly." And if it's on, it will suddenly pull up your whole Facebook account and I'll go, "Oh, Polly, your birthday was yesterday." Or wait a minute, you and I both went. I think that's what it's saying. So I'm getting all of this flood of information about you, and then the glasses are tracking everything that I'm doing, and that's all going into this mega data stream.
Eyes on the road, thousands of US cities merging cameras with AI to surveil Americans in their cars. Camera-based automatic license plate readers installed at major intersection bridges and highway ramps capture the license plate data of passing vehicles along with images of the vehicle and timestamps. These systems are using AI to create a vast searchable database that can be integrated with the other law enforcements. Is there any way of getting out of this? I don't know what we do.
Yeah, so this article talks about the manufacturer of these automatic license plate readers is called Flock. And so there's a movement called DeFlock. And to stop this, and I know that Catherine Austin Fitts and Carolyn Betts and Renette Senham are talking about this all the time. We have got to put some checks on this, Polly. I mean, this is like turning us into this digital, facial recognition. Every motion is tracked, and that's certainly not a world I want to live in.
No, absolutely not. Millions of Americans drink water contaminated with microplastics and drugs. EPA signals it may finally act. EPA said it's considering adding microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and PFAs to its list of drinking water contaminants, opening the door to new research and potential regulation. The move comes alongside a $144 million federal initiative aimed at understanding and reducing microplastics in the human body. Thank God. Yes, come on.
Yeah, it's good. This is announced by the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin, and he had this press conference together with Secretary of HHS Kennedy. It's being criticized, Polly, by the National Resources Defense Council as smoke and mirrors, that this isn't really the level of engagement that's going to be required. I think it's a good first step, but we'll have to follow this to see where it leads.
Okay, well, that's our show this week. I think most exciting news, Mary, is you going after anybody who says the wrong thing, going after the truth. More of that, please. I think everybody's definitely going to want that. Mary's going to be hosting tomorrow morning on Good Morning CHD.
Yes, I have Jeffrey Tucker as my guest, and he wrote this terrific article about how the regulatory capture around vaccines starts at the beginning of the 1900s. And really, this is part of the history that I wasn't familiar with. So we had a really fun and interesting conversation about vaccines, but also about what Brownstone Institute is doing and how CHD and Brownstone really are working together in so many important ways.
Very exciting. Well, we'll see you next week. And until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Bye, Polly. Bye, everybody.
Even within the Vermont legislature, which is notoriously climate conscious, to say it politely, even they are starting to wake up to this apocalyptic narrative about climate change and how it's not true. I was having a conversation with a girl who's studying environmental studies at the University of Vermont, and she's in her senior year, and she's like, I feel a little bit unprepared for like the real world. Everything I feel like I've been learning is maybe not, it's not as useful as I thought it was going to be. Let's just say it nicely. She didn't say that. And I said, well, what are you talking about? You know, and she's like, well, a lot of this stuff about climate change and, you know, environmentalism, I can see that outside of college, it's really not what I've been taught that it is, which I can tell you is a lot of fear and propaganda and, you know, apocalyptic narrative that the earth is trying to kill us and that humans are a scourge, you know, we're terrible. That was kind of like the premise of our conversation. And she's like, that's not true. I know that that's not true. And I think we're seeing human beings in America and hopefully globally, I don't quite know elsewhere, but I think we're waking up to this.
Here's final question for you both. What would happen if we did nothing? If we just allowed them to continue as they are? What would the world look like?
So the Atlantic, the august publication, The Atlantic, which if ever there was a transhumanist globalist magazine, it would be The Atlantic, right? Just published an article last week. I shared it with Mary Holland, actually. And the very last sentence of the article, which was about a catastrophic glacier that was going to melt and flood the earth, Polly, and we must do something to stop the catastrophic glacier from melting. The last sentence of the article was, 1,000 years from now, Polly, the entire earth will be geoengineered. And we will be running it like an air conditioner or a climate thermostat. And I thought to myself, my God, I hope not. But that's the short answer to your question. If we do nothing, Polly, the transhumanist globalists will just keep, you know, doing what they do.
And to build on that, I think that's such a beautiful question, and Rob's answer is so telling, because while this is so terrifying and it's so preposterous, fantastical, ridiculous, whatever word you want to use, you know, there's two sides to it. You can choose to look at it and say, man, this is so horrible that they're going to turn the entire planet into like an air conditioner, which, by the way, they don't break all the time, right? Like they don't have issues or leak, right? Like they don't have problems. Like they totally do. I'm joking, but it's like let's not do that. But at the same time, what does it say about nature and humanity and life itself when it's not being manipulated, when it's not being messed with or constantly being medicated, let's say, when it's just allowing itself to exist the way that it would naturally will? Man, it's hard for me to even conceptualize.
Polly, we want to make clouds real again. We want to make skies blue again. We hope everyone will join us at ourgeoengineeringage.org and share all of the publishing and resources that we've offered for free. And again, as our friend Catherine Austin Fitz says, if you're not in a conspiracy, you're missing out. So get in a conspiracy right now. A group of people breathing together for strategic purpose. We're on the side of breathing with Team Human and nature. And I know Ph.D. is in that conspiracy with us. Thank goodness you're here. So we just so appreciate you bringing the geoengineering conversation to a larger audience. It's long overdue. Long overdue.
Thank you both very, very much. And we can get those hats coming up on that site. We can buy them ourselves from you. Thank you both very much for doing this for us. We are live now, okay? So tell us your name.
My name is Brenda Timms.
Okay, this is a story about you taking Pfizer. Talk us through why you took the Pfizer COVID-19 shot in the first place.
When I took the Pfizer COVID vaccine, I had been divorced for 21 years. I had met my soulmate. We had just been married 8 months. Was going to take our honeymoon, so I knew in order for us to travel for the honeymoon, I would probably need the shots, and I took them at work. They were offered at work. I've never had a problem with the flu vaccine. I did not think anything about it. I did get both of my Pfizer vaccines.
See that, everybody? There we go, 2 Pfizer shots there. So that's your COVID-19, as they say, vaccination record card, and you took 2. When
Yes.
did you start to feel ill?
Actually, it did not happen until July the 4th weekend. We were at the lake with our friends. And on that Monday, I said, my legs were in excruciating pain. I need to go home. Called the doctor's office. They couldn't get me in until 2 days later with the orthopedic doctor. I did not know what was going on. I was in so much excruciating pain. I was in and out of the hot bathtub constantly. I went to see the orthopedic doctor. He just diagnosed it as my hip area was hurting, sciatic nerve, and gave me gabapentin. I do not take pain pills, but I was in so much pain. I needed relief. It was gabapentin, 600 milligrams, 3 times a day. 2 days later, I was able to return to work. My boss noticed immediately that I was extremely intoxicated under the medications and made me go home. That Saturday, I have a twin sister. She was there with me. I began to notice that I was getting completely dizzy, could not focus, felt like I was going to get sick, had to go to bed. That Sunday morning, my mom came over to check on me, and she said, "Brenda, something's wrong. I don't know if you're having a stroke or what. We need to get you to the ER." My daughter's a nurse. She met us at Jackson General Hospital. By the time I got there, my face was completely drawn on both sides and going down to the point where I could barely speak. They did CT scan, MRI, blood work, showed absolutely nothing. Admitted me in. I laid there for 2.5 days as an inpatient. Excruciating pain on the right side that I kept saying, "Please, I need something, something's going on." Kept giving me hot packs to put on it. They discharged me with a diagnosis of reaction to a sinus cocktail shot that I had received 2 months prior to that. I told the ER doctor he was completely wrong. I knew this had something to do with the vaccine, but at that time, with COVID being so new, I felt like no one was going to be honest with me. I felt it in my heart from the moment something happened, because I was completely healthy, that this had something to do with the vaccine. And he said no, it was adverse reaction to a sinus cocktail. Discharged me. I went home. 2 days later, woke up from a nap in that same excruciating pain. I called my doctor. She said, "Get to our convenient care." The doctor there told my husband, "Get her straight to Vanderbilt." No one in West Tennessee, no doctors around here, has ever dealt with bilateral Bell's palsy. That's what I have. It only happens to 1 in 5 million people. It has taken so much away from me. Trust me, I'm blessed where I am now compared to where I was. I look a lot better. I've came a long way. I go straight to Vanderbilt. They immediately start CT scans, MRIs, testing me for everything humanly possible that would cause Bell's palsy, from Lyme's disease, HIV, Guillain-Barré. They tested me for everything. I had 4. By the 3rd day I was there, I'd already had 4 spinal taps done. The neuro doctor came in with his team of interns, and my face is still in excruciating pain. And I looked at him directly and I said, "Tell me I'm a product of the government. I know that I am. I know the vaccine shot did this to me, because at this point, everything you have tested me for has been negative." And he said, and I swear to God as my witness, he knows this. He looked at me directly and said, "Do not alert the media." I knew right then he knew it as well as I did, but would not say it. It's like the government had them all doctors, right where they needed them and wanted them in order. They didn't want to lose their jobs if they agreed. That's how I felt. No doctor was going to be honest with me. After being an inpatient for 3.5 weeks, continuous test, arms black and blue, continuously, all over, from all the blood work. I went through 3.5 days of IVG therapy, which is to help heal immune systems that have been compromised. The only thing out of the multitude of tests that was done to me at Vanderbilt Hospital that came up positive out of this was high levels of spike protein, which, if you've studied it like I have, that is a side effect of these vaccines they were done. I'm agitated, upset, my face completely drawn to where I can barely speak when I'm discharged. I was off work for 3 continuous months. My mindset, because I've always been a hard worker, was I needed some type of normalcy, so I needed to get back to work, but I could barely speak. I chose to go to speech therapy 3 times a week, so that really helped me, but not to mention the only by the grace of God, and I have a twin sister who was there for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this whole 3 months. My husband continued to work during that time. I'm going to say not supportive of everything that I was going through, which I understand some of that. Sometimes men don't know what to do to help out. I went back to work in October of 21. I had only been at work a month. All of my hair, basically all of my hair fell out, and I lost 30 pounds in 1 month. Went back to my doctor. She sent me back to Vanderbilt. I had numerous more tests done, from a PET scan, another MRI, CAT scan. Anything that would show anything going on in my body, it showed nothing at all. Nothing. All my tests were negative, except for, at that time, they showed something that came up in my breast that I had to go a week after that and have a biopsy done. Mind you, before I took these vaccines, 6 months prior, I'd had a mammogram done. Nothing. There was nothing in my breast. For the next year, it was continuous tests over and over and over. I have been put through every test man-made, humanly possible, to try to figure out what was going on with me. Everything negative. The head neurosurgeon there, neurologist at Vanderbilt, finally admitted to me, because I had the mindset the whole time, every time I met with a different doctor, I would be straight up and say, I know the vaccine did this to me. I know the Pfizer vaccine did this to me. He finally agreed and said, after all the tests you have been through, I have to agree with you that the vaccine did this. My doctor here in Jackson, Tennessee, has also agreed with me. She has also said that if we ever get to go to court for this, because I know the government has all of the vaccine, COVID vaccine makers, all of them protected to where you cannot sue. But she has said, if I ever get to have my day in court, she will be in court with me that day. It has been nonstop, various just unexplainable things that happened to me during this time, from arms and legs just out of nowhere, flopping in the air, making me fall to the floor. Numerous visits back to the ER after I was discharged from Vanderbilt. The medication they put me on 2 days later ended me back up at Jackson General ER. Vanderbilt Hospital doctors said the way it was, my tongue was swelling to the point where I couldn't hardly breathe. My skin, to touch it, did not feel hot, but from the inside out was like 200 degrees. They rushed me by ambulance back to Vanderbilt again to be told that I was having an allergic reaction to the medication that they gave me for the trigeminal nerve that was completely damaged from laying at Jackson General Hospital with no doctors, no ER doctor or nurses listening to me of the excruciating pain that I was in. It was like they heard me, but they were not listening. An ice pack and a hot pack would take care of it, to be told that that was all from a sinus infection. I knew it was not. I knew in my heart the whole time it was the vaccine. My twin sister, who has stood by me the whole time through all of this, knows everything that I've been through. I have no reason to lie. I have medical records. I have documentation. I have a stack this high from the last 2.5 years that proves everything that I am saying today is the honest to God truth. I was so angry at how my smile has been taken away from me. I would never be able to smile again. How my hair, how my life, how my marriage. I just became divorced on January the 5th. Less than a month ago. But I will not let it define me. I am a good person. I was already insecure about myself. This only adds to it, because I have no control. What I'm angry about, I've had so many medical expenses that not even my husband helped me pay any of those through this. I will continue for the rest of my life to have medical expenses. The government's not there for us people that these vaccines have hurt. What I do not understand and will never understand is how the government provided so much money readily to these hospitals for deaths that they were calling was caused by COVID. You will never convince me, ever, that the majority of those people who died of COVID did not. There was an underlying condition that COVID may have interrupted or affected in their bodies. But this COVID vaccine, I know that the Pfizer vaccine was produced in less than a year's time. The fastest vaccine ever manufactured. It took 4 years for them to come up with the measles vaccine. The way it was pushed down our throats. The doctors told me, I sent my twin sister and my daughter, do not get the vaccine. You share the same DNA. My twin sister did not. My daughter's a nurse, was a nurse for Jackson General Hospital, was made to get it or lose her job. She waited till the very last day. Thank God, the only effects that she had was being in pain and ran a fever for 2 days. I will tell you this, I was so angry and hurt that why me, God? Why me? 1 in 5 million people this happens to. Why did it have to happen to me? I'm a good person. I love people. I love doing things for people. I have a good heart. The only reason I can say that this might have happened is because I had lost my way with God. Since that time, I brought myself back to church. I believe in our God. He has brought me so much peace through this. He's allowed my anger to go away. And I'm so grateful and blessed for that. I'm so thankful for my true friends. Because in times like this, where you're suffering, but they can't begin to understand what you're going through, never will. I have people to say, well, at least you're alive. Yes, I am, and I'm grateful for that every day after everything I've been through, not knowing the outcome of what was going to happen. I'm very grateful, but I've also lost people that was very close, because for someone to look at me and say, at least you're alive. Yes, I am, but you can't begin or understand what I've gone through, what I will continue to go through. A lady reached out to me after my doctor at Vanderbilt was basically through with me and said, there's nothing else we can do for you. A lady reached out to me and told me of a Dr. Prish Patel at Vanderbilt who works with people who have facial skinatosis. So for a year now, every 3 months, I go to Vanderbilt and I see him and I have Botox done. Where a woman my age at 53 would have Botox to get rid of wrinkles, I have Botox to weaken the muscles in my face. I am on continued medication for the rest of my life to control the trigeminal nerve pain. Continued eye problems. I have been having to see an ophthalmologist since this happened. It was continuous at first. What you're seeing here and what you're looking at is not how I feel from the inside out. My eyes constantly have a quiver to them. I'm extremely tired all the time. That's not who I was before. But I'm very grateful, and by God's grace, I'm sitting here telling my story. I'm not trying to convince anyone what they need to do, but what I am saying is do your research. Know what you're getting into. Do not listen to the media. Do not listen what's being pushed or enforced by the government, because the government hasn't been there for me or all these other people. They had that money so readily. Where did it come from? All of a sudden, to me, COVID and all of this was a huge money maker. Huge money maker. That's what it was all about, or controlling population. Where is the government helping us, the people who were affected? Our medical bills, our continued care that we have to have. They're not. We can't do anything at this point. I hope and pray there will be a day that we get our voices heard. I'm appreciative of this opportunity today. I will always be an advocate for vaccines and what they do to people. This is my new life. It's not the end of my story. Know what you're getting into.
Let's bring your sister on, your twin sister. Come sit next to your sister. Come on. So this is her twin sister.
This is my twin, Bridget.
Yeah.
Thank God I've had her. But let me tell you what it's done to her in the last 2 years. I even had to talk with her this morning. How she needs to let this anger go. Because even as I was at Vanderbilt Thursday for treatment, she looked at me and she said, you know I would kill someone over you, right? I don't want her to keep hanging on to that anger.
I don't want people making fun of her. You know, I don't.
We're not recognized as twins any longer, and let me show you why. If it wasn't for this wig, making me feel a little bit more like myself every day. Let me take this off. And this is what I truly have to deal with. This is the new me. Thank you to the Pfizer vaccine. This is me trying to smile now. Something I'll never be able to do to my grandchildren. I have one child, and the day she gets married, I worry about looking like the upset mother who's not happy in her pictures because I cannot smile.
That's her smile.
How's that?
That's it.
That's it.
That's her smile.
And I'm only able to do that because of the Botox treatments that I have been receiving for the last year.
Now, you did not take the shot.
I did not.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. You know, I feel fine. I do. I have, when she's down and stuff, or she feels something, we've always had that Twinkie thing where, you know, I feel sick and this and that. And
I stay very nauseated. I'm on several medications for the rest of my life.
well, I just stayed so mad that first year because it's like she was trying to tell them, you know, this and that, but they didn't want to listen to her because no doctor wanted to put their license on the line and say this is it. I've been at every doctor visit with her through every step of this, and
I'm so blessed to have you.
Yes,
Because I would have felt
yes.
really alone. I mean, I have mother and my daughter, and they've been wonderful too. But I was really able to make it through this, especially during the first part, because I have my twin sister.
Yeah.
If I hadn't, I would have, because the amount of depression that comes with it is indescribable. I can see where if someone was alone and had no one, where this could lead to a very dark path of maybe making choices to end their life. I could really see that. It's very sad, so I'm very grateful.
Well, she also filed it, was it VAERS?
I filed the VAERS report right after it happened.
Never
A year
heard
later,
nothing from it.
well, a year later, they reached out, wanted to know if I still had problems. I said yes. Permanent bilateral Bell's palsy. Nothing is like, I did my part by filing the report. That's about how it was looked at. I would, if you don't mind handing me that little photo over there, show a picture.
I got some pictures out.
Yeah. This is the last day I smiled. This was me, July 4th weekend. This was the last real smile I had.
So before you took the shot?
Yes, that was the day I had to go home, that afternoon, when my legs started being in excruciating pain. This was me on my honeymoon. That's what I look like.
So can I just say one thing? We're not going to bash your ex-husband, but you took the shot to go on a honeymoon with him. You get injured, he don't treat you right, from what I'm hearing, and you're now divorced.
Yes. And I waited 21 years to get remarried.
Well, it's his loss.
That's
Thank you, but to hear him tell it, it would have absolutely nothing to do with this. But how, when everything was so great before this happened, I understand we're married only 8 months, I felt like he was not attracted to me physically or sexually. I felt like after immediately losing my hair and the 30 pounds in 1 month, he almost treated me, or I felt like if he were to touch me, something might hurt me. So I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I can understand at first where he was coming from. But after it's a reality, this is how my life is going to be. He's just not affectionate at all. Anything. That's just a picture of me trying to smile.
That was like the different levels your face went through.
Yeah, that
That's
was
in
me
Vanderbilt
at
Hospital.
Vanderbilt Hospital. And that's me on my honeymoon.
See,
How-
her mouth has come a long way since then. I
It
mean,
looks like you
her
had a
face,
stroke in that.
right?
Exactly,
her
that's
whole-
what
this
they
side
were
of her
thinking.
face was a lot lower.
Oh,
than the
yeah.
other.
So that's why I say the
You come a long way.
Botox has tremendously helped. And I've came a long way from where I was. a really long way.
Yes.
Yes. But
That's why my skin doesn't look as smooth as hers, because I don't get Botox.
but I will tell you this. I just told a coworker of mine yesterday about coming to do this, and she said, but Brenda, I said, no, there's no but. There's no amount of money, ever if this does get to go to court, there is no amount of money that I had rather have. I had rather have my 30 pounds back. I'd rather have my hair back like it was. Never have gone through any of this at all. No amount of money will ever suffice for what I feel like I have lost. So, it just won't.
Thank you both for telling this story.
Thank
being
you.
here and your
Thank you
support.
for letting
Thank
me
you
be
for this
here.
opportunity.
Because it's such an important story.
Yes, it is. And
Thank
this is
you.
the first time she's really got to voice it.
Yes.
So from
It
this 2.5
is.
years, this is a great thing. And I actually live in Nashville now, but I drove down because I was not going to miss this. This was the first time her voice being heard.
Yes.
So I've been at all these doctor's appointments and doctors not listening and wanting to act like we need to put it on the shelf because you don't want to admit it. And I've been through all this pain and stuff with her. So I'm very fortunate for y'all to be here today and let her tell her story.
Absolutely.
So you're
Yes.
going to write your name on the bus
Absolutely. Yes.
and stay in contact with us. I want to see
I will.
Yes.
how you develop. I mean, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
That's why I tell her you're still a beautiful
Very
woman,
beautiful
though.
woman.
Yeah.
I don't feel it though. What you see on the outside is not what I feel on the inside. It never will be. But I know by God's grace, I have a reason for being here. I have a purpose, and I will continue being the same good person that I've always been.
So thank you both.
Thank you.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.